This balance problem and sort of thinking about what the midfield is going to look like, what the defence is going to look like. Before we wrap up, obviously, we want to talk about the Palace game on Saturday. It's the last Premier League game before the international break. I mean, I don't really know why we're having internationals at the moment with a congested season. A little bit frustrating, but it's a game I think Chelsea really need to win. I mean, I hate to sound extreme and say must win, but I think just for the confidence of the
Yeah, it
team,
is.
the coach, the fan base, I think we don't only need a win. I think we need quite a confident win. I think Chelsea need to do some good attacking on Saturday, and I think that's the issue. And firstly, I want to ask you about defence because the chopping and changing. Frank basically he changed the whole back five on last night against Spurs to Saturday's game. I mean, what happens on Saturday? Because individually, I think Christensen had a pretty decent game against West Brom. I think I think he struggled because he was exposed a lot of the time, but I think actually on his own he did okay. Then you have Kurt Zuma and Tomori come in, and I felt they did pretty well last night, and I think they're our strongest back two. I mean, this is the difficulty, isn't it? I think Lampard's going to have to settle on something because if he doesn't, I think we're going to see the same problems we had last year.
100%. I mean, I do not envy him having to make the decisions in terms of who's going to play and who's going to start because, you know, where's Thiago Silva's role in this? Because, he didn't look too great again when he played the other day, but it's easy to forget that he's very new and French football was one of the first to stop playing and he hasn't played regularly for months. So I don't know whether he'll start, possibly, but I'm not sure. I think Tomori and Zuma is the preferred choice, but I would understand if it was Zuma and Thiago Silva. I would. Chilwell has to play, and I think Reece James has to play. Like we are talking about stats and eye tests, I saw a tweet by Who Scored today that Chelsea's top three performers so far this season in terms of stats and overall numbers, it's Reece James first, Mason Mount second, and Timo Werner third. So I think Reece James has to play because he's a creative outlet as well. And I think it's good to have him tested by players like Eze and Zaha, and they're going to get behind him. And I think he needs to learn those lessons. And I want to see him. I want to see him playing as much as possible. Equally, Aspi can play as a centre back. And I don't think that's the worst idea sometimes when you need a bit of reassurance and intelligence at the back. Christensen, likewise, I'm actually a fan of his. I think he's a good player. I'm not sure he works at Chelsea. He's very similar to Jorginho. Excellent players with a lot to offer, but I don't know whether they're feeling it at Chelsea, and I don't know whether the management are, warming to them. In terms of the attack, I think Havertz obviously has to play. He is fantastic. I actually spoke to my dad recently about Havertz and saying that I worry if his performances dip because he reminds me of Ozil a bit, where he looks a little bit languid and you rarely see him sprinting around too often. And it kind of looks like he's not trying his hardest when actually he is. Werner's obviously going to play. I think Mount has to take a break. He has to rest because otherwise it's going to be like Harry Kane at Spurs where they play him too much and he burn out. I think looking at, Palace have a pretty weak defence, but they're in a decent system. Their defence is old and slow. So Werner hopefully will be able to grab a goal. I think the confidence will have improved. I'm up for Giroud having a start as well. But, Tammy probably deserves it because he's been really good this season so far. And I'm a massive fan of his as well. And he's probably looking to break into that England squad more so than Giroud is looking to get into the French squad because he's almost nailed on or he's over it. Do you know what I mean? So it's a tough one. And I think I'd like to see Hudson-Odoi start as well because he needs regular minutes. Pulisic is injured. Ziyech's out still. So why not play him? There's no harm in playing him, especially if Mount's not playing. But the formation is the tough one. That's the tough bit. I literally don't know. I have no idea. Because the squad and what I would like it to work as, I would like it to be a 4-3-1-2 with Werner and Tammy or Giroud up front, with Kai just in behind, and then Kante, Kovacic, and whoever else is the third midfielder. But we have Hudson-Odoi and other players that need to play wider, so maybe a 4-3-3. But I just don't know.
I think as well the issue, of course, recording this before Frank's press conference, and he could drop a massive bombshell and say Pulisic and Ziyech are back, they're fit, they're ready to go, which would be lovely, which would be
Yeah,
absolutely a massive game changer. I can't, even if they are fit, I think they would definitely both, or at least one of them, maybe on the bench for that game. But I think that's the problem at the moment, because I was going to suggest playing Timo in the middle, because I think the experiment of playing Timo wide so far, I don't think has really worked. Giroud was barely in the game against Tottenham. I mean, you would have not known he was on the pitch. I mean, it was so
yeah.
difficult for him to get into the game. Though Tammy has looked decent so far, but I just wonder maybe playing Timo up top. But the problem is with Frank, if he plays Timo up top, he hasn't got enough wingers or wide players, and he has to sort of be pragmatic and either shift Mount out there, who we think needs a rest, Havertz out there, which I don't think is his best position, and you've only really got Callum there. So I think at least for one more game, he may have to still play Werner left, maybe Tammy
Yeah.
up top, Havertz, and then Hudson-Odoi. I'd like to see Hudson-Odoi get more minutes, because I think another one of these players that I think the more he plays, the less about rumours over his future will sort of dissipate.
100%.
I think he just needs to go and play football a bit more. And of course, that difficult night, and him and Mason both had difficult nights last night in terms of, should have maybe passed the ball when they made a mistake. But both players, I think, need minutes, especially Callum recently. I think in terms of threats, it's that midfield for me that's, I think, the biggest issue, because as we've been speaking about with Rice and Jorginho and Kante, and maybe putting Reece there, it's so difficult. I mean, he seems to be persisting at the moment with a 4-2-3-1. But I think if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1, Jorginho, that ain't going to suit him. He's going to be exposed eventually. And covering Kante against West Brom, I mean, it didn't really set the world alight. But then you could argue, is that because we played so poorly? Maybe if you give that to another chance, could it work?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd like to think it could. Um, but again, I think that those two, Kante and Kovacic, work better when we're getting pressed a bit. And I don't see Crystal Palace pressing us. I think it's important to remember that Timo Werner's long-term position at Chelsea is not going to be on the left. It's just not. There's absolutely no way that is going to happen, because Pulisic can play there. And I think Timo will go up top, and I think maybe we'll experiment with the two up front, which would be really interesting. Um, but, whatever happens, just kind of keep moving forward and trust in the process. And it's really important to remember as well that this season is like no other. There's not going to be another season like this for a long, long time, where there's been no pre-season, massive global pandemic, players not fit, certain players fitter, the transfer window, very strange. No one really knows what's going on. Lots of people coming in. We're expecting a lot more players to go out. So for Chelsea, this is a tumultuous time, and fans that are sat there demanding instant results are not going to get them. It's not going to happen, not just yet. It will. I really do believe it will, because the players you have, we got Kai Havertz and Timo Werner in our team. It's crazy, because they're some of the best players in the world, especially Timo Werner. Kai Havertz is close to, he looks like he could be one of the world's best. But they're young, and it takes time, and it's a new league, and you can't expect great things from them straight away, because if you were to take yourself, say, for example, someone watching this who's 18, 19, 20, how would you feel if you had to get up, leave home, go to a foreign university, and you wouldn't start killing exams straight away? You wouldn't know where you're going. You wouldn't even be able to get around. It takes time to learn all these things and to become part of the culture and understand what it means to be at the club and play Premier League football. So you just have to give things time, and I'm afraid that in the age that we live in, people aren't willing to give anything time, let alone football. And you look at Liverpool, Klopp's been there 5-6 years. Now they're really good, but they weren't to start with. You look at Poch at Spurs, they were not that great to start with, but they grew into a world-class team, really. Just these things take time, and we're not under Conte management where he's going to come in, instantly win something, and probably leave, because that's the type of manager he is. It's not like that anymore. So it's really hard to say, because everyone's allowed their own opinions, and everyone's got their own footballing philosophy. But people just need to chill a bit. It is only football, and I think with the pandemic and everything that's going on, there are so many more important things it will come through. We will win football games. We're not going to struggle. You look at Macclesfield and Bury and Wigan. That Macclesfield are close to going under because of a 500 grand debt, and Timo Werner's on 200 grand a week. We're fine in the grand scheme of things. We're fine. We just might not win a trophy that people expect us to win this season or next season. And if that's making people so angry, then I think really they need a bit of perspective almost, because it makes very little sense.
Yeah, that's a very balanced and intelligent way of looking at things and sort of the whole situation. And I mean, it is unfortunate that it does seem like more and more football is becoming less and less patient and more and more reactionary. And sometimes people feel that the most intelligent way of analysing a game is to go for the most extreme reaction. And yeah, sometimes that sort of feeling that football isn't life or death, and Chelsea are going to be here tomorrow, I think is a really sort of healthy way to look at it. But thank you so much, Jay, for coming on the channel. Great discussion. Before we wrap up, as I do with all my guests, I want to give you the opportunity now to say to people where they can find your work online. Obviously said about SW6 Daily. I know you've been on several podcasts recently, so anything you want to plug, now's the opportunity.
Yeah, please go and check out SW6 Daily on Twitter. Obviously, for people that haven't been to Stamford Bridge before, SW6 is the postcode of where the stadium is and where the squad play. You can find me at JJ Mcintosh 5 on Twitter as well. We have a great team, and I'd also recommend people check out your piece that you wrote this morning, because I read it and I thought it was very good. Everyone who's putting content out about Chelsea now, there's never any beef or any people not getting along. There's lots of people putting out incredible content, and I'd recommend checking them all out if you want to learn a bit more and see a few different perspectives. And obviously go and check out the Byline podcast that Alex and I were on. It's my pinned tweet on my Twitter. I'm sure you can find it if you scroll down. Daniel's Twitter page as well, obviously. But yeah, please check out those things if you can, and I really appreciate you having me on.
No worries, man. Definitely. Thanks for the comment on the piece. It was one of those where I needed to write it after last night, the frustration of last night. But all the links that Jay just described, they'll be in the description box below. Go and check them out. Go and support Jay's work. Go and support SW6 and Chelsea creators at the moment, because it is an exciting time to be a Chelsea fan online. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonofChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.